ಡಿ ವಿ ಜಿಯವರ 34ನೇ ಪುಣ್ಯತಿಥಿಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಡಿ ವಿ ಜಿಯವರು ತೀರಿಕೊಂಡದ್ದು 1975 ಅಕ್ಟೋಬರ್ 7. ಅವರು ಈ ಗೋಖಲೆ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ವಿಚಾರ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಸ್ಥಾಪಕರು, ಇದನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟಿ ಬೆಳೆಸಿದವರು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಭಾಗ. ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಅರ್ಥಪೂರ್ಣವಾದ ಸಂಗತಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಡಿ ವಿ ಜಿಯವರು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗಿರುವ ವೈಚಾರಿಕ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯಕ ವಾರಸಿಕೆ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಉಳಿದಿದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಮುಂದೇನು ಬಹುಕಾಲ ನಿಶ್ಚಿತವಾಗಿ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು. 34 ವರ್ಷದ ನಂತರವೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಮಾಜದ ಜನರ ಮಾನಸಿಕತೆಯ ಭಾಗವಾಗಿ ಸ್ಥಾಯಿಯಾಗಿ ಡಿ ವಿ ಜಿಯವರು ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರ ಬರಹಗಳ ಜನಪ್ರಿಯತೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಬದಲಾಗಿ ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚುತ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರವಲ್ಲದೆ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರವನ್ನು ತಮ್ಮ 10 ಜನಪರ ಸಂಘಟನಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಗಳಿಂದ ಡಿ ವಿ ಜಿಯವರು ಬೆಳೆಸಿದರು. ಅದರ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಮುಖ ಅಭಿವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಈ ಗೋಖಲೆ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ. ಹೀಗೆ ಅವರ ಪುಣ್ಯತಿಥಿಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರನ್ನು ಸ್ಮರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಸ್ವಾಭಾವಿಕ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಈ ಸ್ಮರಣೋಪನ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನು ನೀಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನ್ಯಾಯಮೂರ್ತಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಎನ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವರು ಕೃಪೆ ಇಟ್ಟು ಆಗಮಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನ್ಯಾಯ ವಿತರಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಶಿತತೆಗೆ, ಜನಾಭಿಮುಖ ಹಾಗೂ ಸಮಾಜಹಿತ ಪೋಷಕ ನಿಲುವುಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೆಸರಾದವರು ನ್ಯಾಯಮೂರ್ತಿ ಎನ್ ಕುಮಾರ್. ಇದೇ ವೇದಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ 1-2 ವರ್ಷ ಹಿಂದೆ ಅವರು ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಹಕ್ಕು ಕಾಯ್ದೆ ವಿಷಯ ಮಾತನಾಡಿದ್ದು ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ನೆನಪಿದೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಮಾನವ ಹಕ್ಕುಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಾಥಮಿಕ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನ್ಯಾಯಮೂರ್ತಿ ಎನ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವರನ್ನು ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ, ಗೋಖಲೆ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ.
ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಡಿ ವಿ ಗುಂಡಪ್ಪನವರ ಪುಣ್ಯತಿಥಿಯಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಉದ್ದೇಶಿಸಿ ಮಾತನಾಡುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಟ್ಟಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನನ್ನ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. The topic for discussion today is about human rights. In fact, I chose this subject when I was asked to address this August gathering. This subject is a hotly debated subject throughout the world. It has many aspects and multi-dimensions. In fact, this human rights means many things to many people. When I was a student, this was not studied as a subject, but today we have universities conferring doctorates and post-graduation in this particular subject. In fact, in our country, this subject has gained momentum for the last 30 years. I am conscious that in this audience, there may be persons who are working in this field, who are exponents of human rights, who have great experience in fighting against these human rights violations. I have come here to place before you my viewpoint as a citizen of this country. not as a judge. Therefore, my talk should not be construed as a criticism of what others are doing in this field, as I have no intention of hurting anyone's thinking or expression of theirs. It is in this background, before I come to the subject which is agitating the mind of the present society, I would like to give a brief background of this subject so that we could appreciate in which direction today we are going and are we in the right direction. This concept of human rights is as old as ancient doctrine of natural rights based on natural law. Every individual, being a member of human family, possess rights, and they are called human rights. India has a tradition of respect for human rights which finds a mention in ancient scriptures and epics. India traditionally places all human beings at the highest pedestal with the firm belief that each one of them is capable of attaining godhood in the lifetime. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is, the entire universe is a family, is not an old Vedic concept, but a philosophy the Indians live with and cherish. The Indians continue to remain a firm believer in the said concept due to the spiritual thread running through them till date, which inherently strong enough to fruitfully resist and crush such attempts. Human beings are a social creature. They are the integral part of the society. A society sans human beings or a society sans civilized people is no society in the civilized world. Now the whole world is a global family, and each of us as an individual depends upon each other, and each of us as a nation depends on other nation or nations. This compulsion is a natural one, and no one can lead an unsocial, selfish life in a closed chamber. Everyone must have some respect for the needs, priorities, and interests of others if one expects that others should also be as good to him or her as he or she is. This is our past. Now, this subject, human rights, is of recent origin. They emerge from the post-Second World War international charters and conventions. The first documentary use of the expression human rights is to be found in the Charter of the United Nations, which was adopted after the Second World War at San Francisco on 25th June 1945. It stated the ideal, which was to be later developed by different agencies and organs. The UN General Assembly in December 1948, by adopting Universal Declaration of Human Rights, took concrete steps by way of formulating the various human rights. It was to be followed by an International Bill of Rights, which could be binding on covenant parties. In December 1965, UN General Assembly adopted two covenants for the observance of human rights. One, the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Two, the Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. The first one formulated legally enforceable rights of the individual, and second one was addressed to the states to implement by legislation. The two covenants came into force in December 1976 after a requisite number of member states ratified them. Many states ratified the covenants subsequently at the end of 1981. These covenants are therefore legally binding on the ratifying states. India being a party to the international covenants, the President of India promulgated Protection of Human Rights Ordinance in 1983, which is now replaced by the Act of the Parliament. This is the brief history of the human rights as we do today. Now, in the Indian context, human rights find a place in the Constitution of India as fundamental rights. These fundamental rights represent the basic values cherished by the people of this country since the Vedic times, and they are calculated to protect the dignity of the individual and create conditions in which every human being can develop his personality to the fullest extent. On the spectrum of human rights, which are the very essence of human life, there are manifold subjects enumerated in the list appended to the 7th schedule of the Constitution. It is this background, when we look at the human rights in the Indian context, we have to remember that India enjoys a vibrant and participative democracy with a free press and active judiciary. In a country of continental dimensions, with diversity of languages, religions, caste, social tensions and dissonance is but natural. When political violence threatens the existence of the democracy, the state has to take appropriate measures to safeguard the lives of the citizens. Human rights violations do take place while security forces operate in disturbed areas. Vested interests bent upon destroying the secular and democratic character of the Indian Republic had used in the past human rights as a medium to vilify and denigrate India in the eyes of the world. Their anti-Indian propaganda, depicting India as a state trampling on the rights of minorities and people, did fool the well-intentioned people all over the world for some time, with the government of India welcoming international organizations and human rights groups to see the ground realities and judge for themselves the truthfulness of these allegations. The truth has come out, and the international community is appreciative of consistent efforts of India to uphold human rights under trying circumstances. It is in this background. Today, I want to express my few concerns about in which direction in our country the human rights are proceeding. When you look at the newspaper in the morning, there is not a day when you don't find either in the headlines or in bold letters, our security forces are accused of raping innocent women, killing innocent people, and destroying property. We also see in the newspaper killings on account of fake encounters. We also find killing in troubled areas where Naxalites are operating. We also find killing of these gangsters, hired killers by the police personnel. The way this is depicted in the national press gives an impression that our security forces are inhuman, worst violators of human rights in the world, and they are virtually vultures. The question is it true? There is no denying the fact that all this information which is appearing in the press is true. But the way these actions are judged, both by the press and by the exponents of this human rights violation, requires to be carefully considered. All these people are measuring these security forces and police from standards which they believe is the real standard, which they find in Western countries or European countries. What troubles me is when we are comparing these heinous acts, keeping in mind what's happening in America or in European countries, is it a proper comparison? I really wonder whether the Europeans or Americans will ever understand our problem at Kashmir or in Assam or in Jharkhand or any part of our country. It is no secret that India has a porous border of more than 1,000 kilometers with Pakistan. It is now a matter of record. State terrorism encouraged by the neighbor is the root cause for our problem in Kashmir. With the cover of the security forces, these militants are made to enter our Kashmir. And it is also not in dispute that this side of the border we have sympathizers for such militants. They are harbored in the houses. The war against them is not fought as in the Kargil above the mountain or in the open field. They have to be eliminated from the houses where they are harbored. In the process, yes, there are some excesses. Some innocent people are killed. Yes, some girls are raped. By that, are you going to say the entire security forces are lawless? They have no regard for human considerations? And we find equal number of security personnel are killed in these operations. Same is the position in Bangladesh, in Assam, where there is a continuous stream of infiltrators from Bangladesh entering into our country, and the entire balance of the northeastern states is today hampered. How does the Americans or the Europeans understand this problem of ours? Have they faced this problem in their entire careers so far? In fact, America also has an international border with Mexico. It is estimated that about 50 lakhs people, that is the Mexicans, cross America through San Diego. None of those persons who enter America are entering with the intention of waging a war against America. They don't indulge in bomb blasts. They don't indulge in killing of American citizens. They enter America with the intention of getting a job in search of green pastures. Maybe a small portion of which are drug peddlers. They do indulge in some crimes connected with drug peddling and not a militant activity or an extremist activity with the intention of destabilizing the American society or destroying the secular fabric of America. As far as European countries are concerned, absolutely this problem is not there. And when we are comparing what's happening in India, we are keeping them as standards. Please see what's happening in Andhra Pradesh, Orissa and Jharkhand. We have a Naxalite problem. 4 days back we saw a sub-inspector head is beheaded. Yes, again today, we saw policemen are being killed. This is a problem which is something unique as far as our country is concerned. Under trying circumstances, our policemen, our security forces are fighting these anti-social, you call it anti-national elements, to protect our lives. We are unable to fight, either collectively or individually. The state has to fight them through these security forces to protect our life and property. In the process, yes, there are some excesses. And can you call them as human rights violations? Yes, it is a criminal offense under the Indian Penal Code. If any person commits rape, if any person commits murder, by all means the Indian laws are sufficiently strong enough to take care of them. But why do you call it as a violation of a human right and bring down the country in the international arena? This, the press of India and the persons who are fighting for this cause, I request them to keep in mind. When you are talking about violations and comparing them with Western democracies, I want them to see what happened in Iraq, what's happening in Afghanistan, and what is even happening in Pakistan. They invaded Iraq with a pretext that there is mass destruction ornaments are found. Today, the whole world knows the biggest lie one can think of. Yes, the country was headed by a ruler who was the worst human rights violator. You killed him. There are no mass destruction weapons. If you are a gentleman, if you had respect for human rights, you should have honorably quit that country. Even to this day, they are not prepared to quit that country. They are killing people there under the pretext they are militants, they are destabilizing the state. The number of persons whom they have killed on the pretext that they are militants or extremists, when compared to the number of civilian deaths, it is the civilian deaths outweigh these militants. Same is the position in Afghanistan. Same is the position in Pakistan also. This is how the Western security forces are operating. They have killed more civilians, they have killed more women, they have killed more children than the persons against whom they are operating. That's not the position in our country. Our people, our security people have lost life. And here and there may be excesses and some civilian deaths are there. In the aftermath of attack on New York, I am sure everyone has read in the newspaper, on the platform of London railway station, a Brazilian was shot dead point blank. After inquiry, it was found out he was an innocent man. What did the police say? We said, we are sorry. The whole country accepted that excuse. When it comes to Indians, no. If an Englishman says sorry, we accept. When an Indian says sorry, you need a judicial commission to inquire into and take punishment. Forget that. You see how our former President of India was treated. Our former Defense Minister was treated not by the security forces, by the persons who are vested with the security of the airport. Can such a thing ever happen in our country? What happened to these human rights activists? One day in the newspaper we saw, and afterwards absolutely there is no voice heard of them. So is it a case where only in India human rights violation take place? And if same violation takes place in the rest of the world, it is no violation? I, for one, is unable to understand this logic at all. They are Western countries, socially so forward, absolutely no comparison with our countries, and they persistently indulge in these human rights violations. These human rights are supposed to have been imported by us from these Western democracies. and our conduct is judged from their standards, whereas their conduct is judged, there are no standards at all. This is an aspect which really bothers me, and we Indians should properly appreciate this aspect of the matter, and we cannot paint our own security forces and countrymen as violators of human rights. This has yet another aspect. In our country, we have seen fake encounters and people are killed. Till today, I have not seen in any national newspaper. In these fake encounters, either the police or a politician who is in power try to eliminate his political or other opponent at all. It is nobody's case. Till today, no such allegations are made. All that is said is, under the guise of eliminating these anti-social, anti-national elements, some innocent people are killed. It is not disputed. But you cannot call it as a human rights violation. You are prepared to give the benefit of doubt to an American or an Britishman, but not to an Indian. Why this discrimination? Those policemen who killed these people in encounters had no personal grievance against any of these persons who were killed. Maybe either they were over enthusiastic, or it is a case of wrong choice of the person. Either they did not have proper communication, or they committed a mistake. And we have seen in many of these cases, the persons are eliminated, at least 80 to 90% are underworld people, anti-social elements, anti-national elements, who are the worst violators of human rights, and the present criminal justice system in the country was not able to get at them. In a desperate mode, the policemen have eliminated some of these people, and maybe in a few exceptional cases, some innocent people are also killed. Yet another aspect which I am not able to understand is, whenever there is a human rights violation, everyone, including the persons who are working in this field, want prompt and immediate action to see that justice is done to the victim. It is unfortunate that our criminal judicial system is not up to the mark. The rate of convictions in our country is hardly 7%. Everyone in the society have contributed to this. There is no question of blaming the police, the judiciary, the lawyer, or the criminal. Every one of us have contributed to this sorry state of affairs in this country in our own way. Maybe one little more and another little less. Whenever the police try to prosecute these people, for various reasons, the prosecution is not done expeditiously. Now we have well accepted, delay in prosecution itself is a violation of human right. If that man is kept in custody without releasing him on bail, again it is a human rights violation. Speedy trial is a fundamental right. Delay in trial is a violation of human right. As far as the society is concerned, it is accepted. After trial, with 7% conviction, say a person who is accused of rape and murder is convicted, the Indian law today do not enable the judge to impose a death penalty straight away. Again, because of the pressure groups in the society, the courts taking the note of the mood of the people, notwithstanding what the law is, have evolved a position where we say only in rarest of rare cases you can impose a death penalty. Yes, a person is convicted, judge finds it is the rarest of rare cases that he should be hanged, and a judgment is passed as directing hanging of that person. It cannot be executed forthwith. It has to be confirmed by the High Court in appeal. High Court confirms it. We have the Supreme Court. There is a second appeal. And Supreme Court also convicts it. What do? The persons who wanted him to be punished, hanged, found fault with the police and the system for not doing it. After the final verdict saying he should be hanged, again they will raise their voice saying, who gave the state to take away the life of a person? Hanging is also a violation of human rights. And today we know how many persons are ordered to be hanged by the Supreme Court, and still hanging is not possible. On one side, because of the presidential pardon provision, and another side, because of these human rights activists raising their antenna and saying, again it is a violation of human rights. Therefore, I am at a loss to understand, when you are talking about human rights violations, are you talking about the human rights violations of the victims, who are women, children, disabled, elderly people, or the human rights of the persons who have violated the human rights of these persons? That is the problem, that is the doubt, that is what is troubling me when we look at around about the way in which this concept of human rights is being developed in our country. This is a matter of serious concern. Unfortunately, in our country, the persons who makes noise, they are heard. They constitute a microscopic minority. But the silent majority, because of their inaction, silence, are helpless. And these people are carrying the day. So it is in this context, I thought it is necessary to have a dialogue, a discussion at a forum like this about in what direction this concept of human rights is to be encouraged and taken forward, because that's a wonderful concept. There is no two things about it. It is in this context I wanted to place on record before this august body what exactly you mean by these human rights, and what is it that we are practicing, what is it that the Westerners are trying to force it on us, when the law on that point is well defined. Are we following the law, or is it only the theories and your own expression which should gain supremacy, is the question. To understand this aspect, let us see what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights said about these human rights. Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And Article 7 says, all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. Is it a concept which is new to us? Is it not a concept which this country has practiced for more than 5,000 years, which find a place in 1940s by way of these declarations? After this, as I said, we have now passed a legislation called Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. There specifically we have said what that human rights is. It is defined in this fashion. Human rights means the rights relating to life, liberty, equality and dignity of the individual guaranteed by the Constitution. Mark the verse, guaranteed by the Constitution or embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by courts in India. So there is no doubt, there is no ambiguity. Human rights means what is there in the Indian Constitution, what is there in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that can be enforced in our courts. It is in this context, please look at the preamble of the Indian Constitution. It says, "We the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, fraternity." This constitution was adopted. So the human rights definition includes life, liberty, equality and dignity. And our preamble speaks about justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. Fraternity is nothing but assuring the dignity of the individual. And as far as life is concerned, Article 21 of the Constitution says protection of life and personal liberty. So the human rights which we are talking about, which we are expected to protect, which we are expected to enforce, are these rights. It is not the human rights of the violators of human rights. It is not the not the rights of militants, anti-social elements, anti-national elements. That's why I said somewhere we have missed the real essence of human rights. One may wonder if all these found a place in the Constitution itself and under the chapter of fundamental rights which are enforceable, where was the necessity for enacting a law in 1983 for protection of these rights? A very pertinent question, but the answer is this. Today, India is a country with 105 crores population. This constitution was adopted in 1950. Even today, the substantial portion of the Indian population are illiterates. They are not aware of fundamental rights. They are not aware of human rights. They have no education. They don't know their rights are violated, and they don't know that they can enforce these rights. The fundamental rights guaranteed in the Constitution, if violated by the state, a citizen can approach a court. When we have a society where people are not aware of their rights, not aware of the violations, question of enforcing them by going to court just doesn't arise. Probably you are all watching again the headlines in the newspaper about our judicial system. It is estimated the total number of cases which are pending in our courts as on today is about 2.9 crores. We will take it as 3 crores. 50% of that cases are criminal cases. That is, people have not come to court. People are dragged to court because they have committed offences. Out of the remaining 150 cases, which could be called as civil cases or other type of cases, at least 1 crore of cases are pending in the civil courts throughout the country, where property rights, personal rights are involved. These fundamental rights are enforced mostly in the High Court, and we could say about 50 lakh cases in all the High Courts are pending which are connected with these fundamental rights or something akin to that. If that is so, 50 lakhs as against 105 crores, it would be hardly 0.5%. So what is the use of conferring a right and that right not being made aware to the citizen, and he is unable to come to court? But 50% of the Indian population, or for that matter the world population, are women. Barring those women who are educated, well placed in life, living in urban areas, majority of the women are living in such subhuman conditions. Every day their human rights are violated in some way or the other. You find these human rights activists raising a voice when there is a rape of a woman in Kashmir. But you also see in the paper, father-in-law is raping the daughter-in-law. Father is raping the daughter in the house. One day news we have forgotten. I can't understand what is the difference between that lady who was raped in the house by his father-in-law and the lady who was raped by the militants by the security forces in Kashmir. That is the position as far as we are concerned. Majority of the women, in some way or the other, are subjected to inhuman treatment throughout the length and breadth of the country, and their human rights are violated. Similarly, we find child abuse in our country, which is the maximum. Now, the latest trend is abuse of rights of elders. With the breakdown of our joint family system, today, elders are the receiving end. Age has become a curse. They are unwanted. They are not taken care of. Their rights are affected. That is the human rights which we should be talking about in our country, and not the human rights of these militants and extremists. 105 crores is the population of this country, and these people will not even constitute 0.00001%, whereas the human rights of more than 60 to 70% is violated in the house, in the locality, in the office work, place of work, in our surroundings. The resources are limited. And this great constitution was enacted keeping in mind to ameliorate the conditions of these people. Ours is a caste-ridden society. Different communities live. We have minorities. On some pretext or the other, everyone is subjected to inhuman conditions and their human rights are violated. If you want to have a peaceful society, that discrimination should go. That violation should go. And all our energy, resources should be directed against fighting this menace which is affecting the society, and not getting our names printed in the headlines in the newspaper by making noise. When we are talking about human rights, whether it is Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations or the human rights as recognized by the Protection of Human Rights Act or by our Constitution, it is the human rights of these innocent millions of people which should be borne in mind, and we should do something to fight and protect these rights. Therefore, though these rights were conferred under the Indian Constitution, as it did not have the requisite effect, today the Parliament has passed this Protection of Human Rights Act 1999 and created agencies at the national level and at each state level to see that these violations are curbed and people are made aware of these rights, and to the extent possible these rights are protected. It is in this context what is of importance is two provisions in that enactment which as we citizens should bear in mind. One is, the Commission shall perform all or any of the following functions, namely, spread human rights literacy among various sections of the society and promote awareness of the safeguards available for the protection of these rights through publications, the media, seminars, and other available means. Secondly, to work along with non-governmental organizations and association of people who are fighting in this cause. I would say, if we are concerned about human rights, the first and the foremost thing we should do is to see that we do not violate the human rights of the people in our family. I should not violate the human rights of my wife and my children, my parents. And if all of us, through education, are able to convince the people of this country, stop violating the human rights within the four corners of your house, and then in your locality, probably this menace could be curbed to it. Because basically human nature as it is, some people get pleasure in violating somebody other's rights. That's the human nature as it is. It is there in the past, it is there today, and it will continue. All that we could do is to keep it within limits. When you are accusing our security forces of violation of human rights, please examine it carefully. Their human rights is not respected. They are the worst sufferers in the bargain. They are treated like animals. And when they are brought up in that atmosphere, and you expect them to show concern for the other human rights, which is denied to them, which is deprived to them. It is not by prosecutions, conviction orders, hanging, we can prevent these human rights violations. It is only by education, sensitizing the people and convincing them that that is not the way to do things. And therefore now this act has been passed, and we as people want everything to be done by the government, the policemen, the judges. As far as we are concerned, we would not like to move out of our houses. This tendency in us should stop. We should not be afraid of the consequences. If we are a part of the society, and if we want to bring about a change in the society, we must also contribute our might, whatever may be the consequences, without which, by mere criticism, finding fault with others, things will not move. When I am speaking about these violations, I am not for a moment supporting these human rights violations by our security forces or the public. It is a criminal act. They should be dealt as criminals and they should be punished. My objection is to characterize a criminal act as a human right violation and paint the entire country and its people as violators of human rights. Criticism should be constructive, but it should not be destructive. We have a wonderful society. We have our own problems. Today, our country is respected for the democracy which we are practicing. I don't think anywhere in the world any person has more rights than in our country. And in our country, lawbreakers have got more rights than the law-abiding citizens. And that is India, Bharat, Mahan Bharat. So therefore, I am in the view, if human rights violations have to stop, it is not by slogans, it is not by criticism in the press, it is by constructive working of persons who are involved in this field. Only thing is, they have to change their mental outlook, keeping in mind the Indian conditions. Nothing wrong in comparing ourselves with the Western democracies. But we should know all that is good there may not, at the moment, possible to be implemented in our country. Our country has our own problems. And therefore, when we are talking about human rights violations, we have to keep in mind that our society, our circumstances, and then try to do something about it. In fact, why I was prompted to say all this is, when we talk about human rights, we must have a clear perception about what human rights is. All right, let us say it is imported from Western countries. What exactly the Western philosophers have said about these human rights? Here are few statements which they have made, which we have missed. Horace Dubé of Supreme Court of Canada, in my view, has put it in a very wonderful manner what human rights should be. He says, human rights are yardsticks against which all people must measure their conduct and that of their government and public officials, and against which the global community as a whole must measure its progress. So you prescribe standards and then compare. Don't take standards from somebody else and then compare. Then there will be a problem. Then Louis Henkin states, claims asserted and recognized as of rights against society as represented by governments and its officials. Then the Soviet scholar Vladimir states, it is an opportunity guaranteed by the state to its citizens to enjoy the social benefits and values existing in the given society. That is the human rights which we should practice, and that's how we should look at this Western concept. The present Secretary General of United Nations has put it in a wonderful manner. He says, human rights are the expressions of those traditions of tolerance in all cultures that are the basic of peace and progress. Human rights, properly understood and justly interpreted, are foreign to no culture and natives to all nations. It is the universality of human rights that gives them their strength and endorses them with the power to cross any border, climb any wall, defy any force. It is in this background when we say it is not something new to us, it is there from centuries, the Vedic period, people find it difficult to accept it. Therefore, I will only quote what Swami Vivekananda has said, which according to me it should be the basis for these human rights. He has said, each soul is potentially divine. So each soul is not divine, it is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. How do you do this? To do this either by work, by worship, or psychic control, or philosophy, by one or more or of all these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. Therefore, let us not be carried away by these dogmas, philosophies, wonderful concepts explained. In the end of the day, each soul is potentially divine. Try to convert that soul into divinity, and that is the essence of the philosophy which is practiced in this country. And I am sure we do not need any guidance from any quarter of this country as far as this is there, unless we do not know our own value. With these few words, I thank you for the audience for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you. That is the Indian psychic. That's all I can tell you. We want to be more loyal than the king. Otherwise, people don't respect. That's the feeling. And if you say otherwise, then they will call you a militant or an extremist. That's the unfortunate position. People in power, they should know, and to whom their loyalty should be. You are right. We also see criticism. That's what I said. What is that government is? It is not a Pakistani government or a Chinese government. It's our government. Our own people are manning it. And we have elected them. And if they commit a mistake, yes, constructive criticism is all right. But merely because the government of the day did not follow what you say or did not take care of you, you can't go on criticizing the government. They have got more things to take care of, not only this Human Rights Commission. Certainly, why only security system? Every system in our country is bad because the right people are not at the right places. That's the democracy we are functioning. You are 100% right. All that I am saying is, by virtue of that, don't paint the entire country as violators of human rights. That's all. This is a criminal act. He should be dealt like a criminal. We have the law and we will deal with him as a criminal. No mercy to such persons. But merely because few people did this, don't say the entire country is full of such people. The entire security force is like that. My complaint is only to that extent. You criticize. It must be a constructive criticism. That criticism should not destroy the fabric of this country. The whole object of this is to destroy the social and secular fabric of this country, to destabilize this country, and we should not play into their hands. By destabilizing the country, by destroying the fabric, I and you are not safe. That's why I said it's a country of 105 crores. If a small percentage of people behave in an inhuman way, deal with them mercilessly, but don't try to create dissensions in the society so that the country becomes weak. Today a country is emerging in the international arena. They can't find anything against our country. When our own people accuse, what more do you want? It is not an outsider telling you, it's not an American telling you, it's not a Westerner telling you. Your own people criticize, and that gets respectability. And then it takes away, and you will be at the receiving end. My only complaint is, we know our problem, we will deal with our problem, but let us not give a handle to others to exploit that problem, and so that we are exposed. The entire country is exposed. Yes, what you said is a very pertinent question. It is again because of some wrong interpretation, wrong understanding of the law. Some people think when a person is convicted for life, it is only for 14 years. That is not the law. When it is for life, till his last day. But there are some exceptions. A person who was in jail for 14 years, if in the course of that period he conducts himself, he reforms himself, authorities are given the power to release him after 14 years, not before 14 years. Now, because that was followed, people think that's the law. And recently the Supreme Court has to clarify it and say, when he is sentenced to death, when a life imprisonment is imposed, he has to be there till he dies in the jail. It is the wrong interpretation which was the root cause. When we say that the government elected by you releases these people on Independence Day, on Republic Day, on Mahatma Gandhi Day, what to do? In the past, when the King of England, if he had a son, to celebrate that, they used to leave these fellows. And we have inherited that legacy. Thank God, when a Prime Minister has a son or a grandson, he is not released. It is released on an Independence Day or a Republic Day. No, even today life imprisonment means till the end of the life. Nobody can be released before 14 years. One of the rules says, if a person who has been in jail for 14 years, who has undergone it for 14 years, if in that process he reforms himself, conducts himself, a discretion is given to the authorities to release him. The government is supreme. Your government, government whom we elected. Judges are not elected. The government is elected. We are here to convict. You are there to pardon them.
ಮುಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸೂಚನೆ. ನಾಳೆಯಿಂದ 6 ದಿವಸ ಮತ್ತೂರು ಮಾರ್ಕಂಡೇಯ ಅವಧಾನಗಳಿಂದ ಸುಂದರಕಾಂಡ ಪ್ರವಚನ ಮಾಲೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನಾಳೆಯಿಂದ 6 ದಿವಸ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಉಪಯುಕ್ತವಾದ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನು, ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಜಸ್ಟಿಸ್ ಎನ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದಿ ಬರ್ಡನ್ ಆಫ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಅವೇ ದಿ ಬೇಬಿ ವಿತ್ ದಿ ಬಾತ್ ವಾಟರ್. ಈಗ ಈ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ವೈಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ being used to bring down the prestige of the country in the eyes of the world. This is a sad phenomenon. And then adjoiningly, on the other side, it also shows the neglect of requirements of internal security. ಈ ಎರಡೂ ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನು ಅವರು ಬಹಳ ಪ್ರಭಾವಿಯಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ಮನದಟ್ಟು ಮಾಡಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ, ಇನ್ ದಿ ಬಾರ್ಗೈನ್ ದಿ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ಇನ್ನೊಸೆಂಟ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಆರ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದೀಸ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ಪರ್ಸನ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಅಡ್ವೊಕೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್. ನಕ್ಸಲೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಜಿಹಾದಿಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮಿಲಿಟೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅವರ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ what about hundreds and thousands and lakhs of innocent people who have become victims of these militants? And then the irony of it is, these so-called advocates of human rights are claiming legal rights for a class of people who have expressed themselves against your laws. They have declared that they do not respect your laws. Naxalites and others, they do not recognize your laws and they have declared so. And you are claiming your legal rights for such a class of people. It is really ironical. And then these spokesmen and media persons, they argue in favor of rights of these violators of human rights, basic rights, fundamental rights and so on. But the basic sad fact is, there is unfortunately a small but influential section of media and so-called human rights advocates who have developed a certain pathological mindset which is blatantly biased. And they use this at the national level, even at international level, to denigrate our country. A few years ago, even they, at an international conference in Africa, some of these people tried to bring in even caste conflicts under the guise of human rights discussion. So there is a certain mindset which is sad and which has to be addressed. In the 70s, I was myself an office bearer of Citizens for Democracy, which was the forum started by Jayaprakash Narayan. And I had to interact with this type of people. I don't mind naming them, Justice V.M. Tarkunde, Kuldeep Nair and others. But they have such a blatant, unbalanced and irrational mindset. What do you do with them? So, after a time, had to gradually dissociate myself from them. Because of they have a certain line of thinking which according to us is irrational, unjustifiable, and totally unacceptable. And then another point we should recognize is the police and security are doing a hard job, which is really not their job. They have not been trained for it. Only because of these abnormal circumstances, they have been obliged to get into this act of facing these jihadists and Marathis and so on. In fact, a policeman and our security forces, they have not been trained to address these abnormal situations. Like, they have not been trained to deal with Naxalites, they have not been trained to deal with jihadists, but they are doing a hard job, and we should look at it impartially. And so what is happening at practical level? Because of the minorityist and secularist mindset, the present incumbent government, the first thing they did was get rid of POTA, and now they are themselves reintroducing it. So you see, these are the points. So what's the solution? The only solution, as Justice Kumar indicated, is more awareness among the people and sections of the people, and people should be able to tell these media persons and so-called advocates of human rights what they are worth. So we should only hope that gradually there is more awareness among the people, and more sensitivity and responsibility in the media persons and the so-called advocates of human rights. We have listened to a very illuminating and highly topical and important subject. We are most grateful to Justice N. Kumar for his clarity of expression, and then the importance of issues which he addressed, which we should all really think about. And then ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ನಂತರ ಇವತ್ತು DVG ಪುಣ್ಯತಿಥಿಯ ನಿಮಿತ್ತ ಪ್ರಸಾದ ವಿತರಣೆ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇದೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಪ್ರಸಾದವನ್ನು ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸಿ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. On behalf of you all, on behalf of the Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs, I express our gratitude to Justice N. Kumar for taking his time out and addressing us this evening.